The US dollar just hit a four-month low.
Gold simultaneously broke through $5,000 per ounce for the first time in human history.
And in the same week, a crossing point occurred that hasn't happened in 30 years. Central banks now officially hold more.
These three events happening in the same 72-hour window isn't coincidence. It's not market volatility. It's not a temporary correction. It is the structural collapse of dollar dominance happening in real time. And what makes this historically unprecedented is the speed. The Roman Empire took 200 years to collapse after their currency started failing.
The British pound took 30 years to lose reserve status after World War I. The dollar is losing credibility in 30 months.
"30 months. That's the entire timeline of the greatest monetary transition in modern history. And we're only halfway through."
In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what these three simultaneous events mean.
Why the 18-month timeline from now is critical, and what happens when the world's reserve currency collapses faster than any currency in recorded history.
Because this isn't just about gold prices or exchange rates. This is about the end of the financial system that's defined your entire life.
It's almost midnight.
We're doomed.
What is happening?
Let me start with the number that changes everything. Gold is now worth $5,000 per ounce. $5,000 for a single ounce of metal.
To put that in perspective, in January 2000, gold was $280 per ounce.
In January 2020, gold was worth $620 per ounce.
In January 2026, gold is $5,000 per ounce.
That's a 1,006% increase since 2000.
But here's what makes this different from every other gold rally in history. This isn't speculation. This isn't retail investors chasing momentum.
This isn't hedge funds making leverage bets. This is central banks, the most conservative, risk-averse institutions on the planet.
In 2025 alone, central banks added over 1,100 tons of gold to their reserves.
That's the third consecutive year of 1,000th ton purchases. 3 years in a row of record buying. And it's accelerating. Why are the world's most sophisticated financial institutions, the people who manage the wealth of entire nations, buying gold like the world is ending?
Because they have access to data you don't see. They understand mathematical realities that aren't reported on CNBC. They know with certainty that the US dollar system is in terminal collapse. Let me show you exactly what they're seeing.
For the first time since 1996, 30 years, central banks globally now hold more value in gold than in US Treasury bonds.
Gold reserves worldwide, $4 trillion in current market value.
U.S. Treasury holdings by foreign central banks, $3.9 trillion. Gold has officially overtaken U.S. government debt as the world's primary reserve asset.
Stop and think about what that actually means. For your entire adult life, the foundation of the global financial system was US Treasury bonds.
Every country held dollars. Every central bank held treasuries. It was considered the safest, and in 1 week, in January 2026, that 30-year era ended. Central banks looked at the choice between promises from the US government and physical metal in a vault, and they chose the metal.
That's not a diversification strategy. That's a vote of no confidence in the United States of America.
Federal Reserve will be forced to restart quantitative easing.
They'll print trillions of dollars to buy treasury bonds that foreign central banks refuse to buy.
This is debt monetization. It's what Weimar Germany did, it's what Zimbabwe did, it's what Venezuela did.
Foreign central banks see this coming. They're not waiting for the announcement, they're exiting now. Reason 2. Sanctions weaponization has created existential terror.
In February 2022, the US and European allies froze over $300 billion in Russian central bank reserves. Russia had accumulated those reserves over decades. They held them in Western banks, in dollars and euros, as a safety net.
The US didn't seize it legally through courts. They just froze it, declared it inaccessible, and it remains frozen today.
Every central banker on Earth watched this and thought the same thing. If they can do that to Russia, they can do it to us. China looked at their $3 trillion in dollar reserves and realized, if there's a conflict over Taiwan, the US will freeze all of it.
Saudi Arabia looked at decades of dollar recycling from oil sales and realized those dollars are hostages, not assets.
India, Turkey, Brazil, Indonesia, every country with dollar reserves had the same epiphany. Dollars held in the Western finance.
There is no safety. There is no rule of law. There's only political power.
And that realization changed everything.
Because the entire premise of reserve currency status is trust.
That trust is shattered permanently.
And once trust is gone, you move your wealth into assets that can't be frozen, can't be sanctioned, can't be seized by a foreign government.
Gold in your own vault is that asset. China can't freeze Russia's gold. America can't freeze China's gold.
Physical gold stored domestically is sovereign wealth that cannot be weaponized by adversaries.
This is why central banks are buying gold at record rates.
They're building financial sovereignty in a world where the dollar has become a weapon instead of a neutral tool.
Reason 3. US fiscal and political chaos is undeniable and accelerating.
Just days ago, major European pension funds publicly announced they're dumping US treasuries.
Not quietly, not discreetly. They put out press releases explicitly stating they're reducing U.S. exposure because of Washington's political instability and fiscal irresponsibility.
When pension funds, the most conservative institutional investors on Earth, are openly saying the U.S. government is too unstable to trust, that's game over for credibility.
And they're right to be concerned. U.S. debt to GDP ratio is now 128%.
That's approaching the 130% threshold, where every empire in history has faced systemic crisis within 5 to 10 years.
Debt ceiling fights happen every 12 months, and each one brings the country closer to default.
Trade policy shifts chaotically every few months with no consistency.
Economic policy flip-flops constantly.
There's no strategy.
No credibility. Slowly, rapidly.
This is capital flight from the world's reserve currency.
It's never happened before at this scale and speed, and it's accelerating.
Now here's where this becomes mathematically inevitable and timeline specific.
When foreign central banks stop buying U.S. treasuries, the mechanics of the debt spiral accelerate exponentially. Let me walk you through the...
Foreign central banks are net sellers of U.S. treasuries. China, Russia, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Europe, all selling or reducing holdings.
This means when the U.S. government needs to borrow $2 trillion this year, there aren't enough foreign buyers.
Stage 2. Yield spike. When demand falls, bond prices fall. When bond prices fall, yields rise. The U.S. 10-year Treasury yield is currently 4.8%.
If foreign selling continues, yields go to 5.5%, then 6%, then 7%.
Higher yields mean higher borrowing costs for the government. Interest expense explodes from 1.
Stage 3. Fed intervention. When Treasury auctions start failing because there aren't enough buyers, the Federal Reserve steps in.
They announce a new round of quantitative easing. They create trillions of dollars out of nothing and buy the treasuries that foreigners won't buy.
This is the moment dollar credibility shatters completely.
It's gonna fall! We're losing everything!
Please, stabilize the market!
This is a disaster!
If the Fed is printing trillions, their dollar assets will be inflated away. They sell everything dollar-denominated. Treasuries, stocks, corporate bonds, cash, everything.
The dollar loses 30% to 40% of its value in 12 to 18 months. Imports become unaffordable. Inflation spikes to 15%, 20%, 30%. The American standard of living collapses.
Stage 5. Gold explosion. As the dollar collapses, gold becomes the only trusted store of value.
Q1 2026, current phase. Dollar at 4-month lows.
The timeline is 12 to 18 months from now, mid-2027 for the acute phase. That's your window.
So what do you actually do? How do you position for a world where the dollar loses 40% of its value, gold is $12,000?
If you don't own gold or silver, buy now.
Physical metal you can hold or store in a private vault you control. Not ETFs, not mining stocks, not paper certificates.
10% to 20% of liquid net worth in precious metals is the standard allocation. Gold at $5,000 feels expensive.
We demand economic justice now. Our future is not for sale.
It'll be social and potentially violent.
Stock 3 to 6 months of food, water, essentials.
Your vitals look good. Your vitals look good. We'll get you checked in at the hospital right away.
It's so good to finally meet you in person.
Yes, I agree. The turnout is wonderful for the community.
It's still climbing, look at that!
But can it hold above 10,000?
We have to sell soon, this is getting too high.
U.S. 10-year Treasury yield above 5.5%, foreign buyers gone. Dollar index breaking below 95, sustained weakness.
Fed announcing QE restart. Debt monetization confirmed.
Failed or poorly received Treasury auction crisis imminent.
Any of these means accelerate positioning immediately. Let me bring this to a conclusion with the core reality.
The dollar hitting a 4-month low, gold breaking 5,000, and central banks choosing gold over treasuries.
Confirmation that the transition from a dollar-based global system to something else has begun.
And it's happening faster than any currency transition in history.
The British pound took 30 years to lose reserve status after WW1. The dollar is losing it in 30 months.
From early 2024 when cracks appeared to mid-2027 when the crisis peaks. 30 months.
Central banks see this. They have the data. They understand the math. The US debt is unpayable.
The deficits are unsustainable. The political system is dysfunctional. The Fed will print. The dollar will collapse. And gold is the only asset that survives currency death. This pattern has played out over and over. Rome debased currency, gold held value. Spain went bankrupt repeatedly, gold was the refuge.
Weimar Germany hyperinflated, gold owners survived. British pound lost reserve status, gold outperformed everything. The pattern is clear, we're in it now.
And the timeline is compressing. Gold at $5,000 is not the top, it's the beginning.
Most people won't act. They'll watch gold climb to $8,000 and say, I missed it.
These figures indicate a shift in the global market.
Agreed. We need to finalize the proactive measures by Thursday.
To a wonderful harvest and good fortune.
Quickly now, hide the rest.
Are you sure it's secure?
If this analysis showed you what's actually happening behind the headlines, subscribe immediately and turn on notifications.
Next video breaks down the exact timeline month by month through 2027, with specific trigger points and actions to take at each stage.